You've probably felt it before. That nagging feeling that something isn't quite right in a relationship or conversation, but you can't quite put your finger on it. Maybe someone you trust has a way of twisting your words, making you feel guilty, or causing you to question your own emotions. Manipulation can be sneaky. It doesn't always come in the form of overt control or obvious tricks. Sometimes it's much more subtle. It hides in the everyday interactions, in the words they choose, and in the small shifts that make you feel less like yourself. Before we dive into these 5 subtle signs, I want you to stay with me through the entire video. Each of these signs builds on the last one. This isn't just a list of red flags. It's a framework for recognizing how manipulation works so you can protect your inner peace and energy. If you skip even one of these signs, you might miss a key part of the puzzle. And if this resonates with you, I'd love for you to subscribe. Here we explore deeper truths about relationships, self-worth, and inner peace, away from the noise. Together we learn, reflect, and grow. The truth is, manipulation is often subtle enough to fly under the radar, especially when it's happening with people we care about or trust. We're often told to be on the lookout for red flags, loud and obvious signs, but the real danger lies in the small moments that chip away at our confidence, our sense of self, and our ability to trust our own intuition. And the more we ignore those small moments, the more they grow, until one day we're left wondering how we lost ourselves in the first place. The last sign on this list might hit home for you, just as it did for me. It's the kind of revelation that shifts everything and helps you take back control. Stay with me until the end. This is where the real power lies. They use gaslighting to make you doubt your reality. The first subtle sign of manipulation is gaslighting. It's a psychological tactic that's subtle but incredibly damaging. Gaslighting is when someone deliberately manipulates you into doubting your own perception, memory, or understanding of events. It's not always obvious at first. It usually starts in small, almost inconspicuous ways. But over time, it can have a significant impact on your mental and emotional well-being. Gaslighting can look like this. Maybe someone says, "I never said that," even though you clearly heard them say it. Or perhaps when you express how you feel, whether it's hurt, frustration, or disappointment, someone might respond with, "You're overreacting," or "You're too sensitive." In that moment, you may start to doubt yourself, thinking, "Maybe I am overreacting," or "Maybe I misunderstood." But here's the thing. When people engage in gaslighting, their goal is to distort your sense of reality. They want you to second-guess yourself, your memory, and your emotions. The more they deny things that you know to be true, the more likely you are to question your own perceptions and your own mind. This type of manipulation is often insidious because it doesn't come with loud, obvious alarms. It's not like someone standing in front of you and lying outright in a way that's easy to spot. Instead, it's more like an erosion of your trust in yourself. The tiny moments, the little remarks, the repeated denials, they begin to accumulate. You may start to feel confused, anxious, or uncertain about your own reality. Over time, you may feel like you're losing your grip on what's true, and that's exactly the point. They want to make you question your own sanity. I want to share a personal experience. A while back, I was in a situation where someone I trusted kept telling me, "That's not what I said," when I would bring up things they said before. At first, I dismissed it, thinking maybe I just misunderstood. But then it kept happening. Little things like them saying, "You're making that up," or "I never agreed to that," when I knew deep down that they had. At one point, I remember doubting my own memories, wondering if I really had heard them correctly. It made me feel like I was losing touch with myself. I'd catch myself apologizing for something I was perfectly right about, just to avoid the conflict. I felt like I was going crazy, like I couldn't trust my own mind. That's the power of gaslighting. It erodes your self-trust, and it leaves you vulnerable to manipulation. Let me ask you this. When was the last time someone made you feel like you were crazy or irrational for simply standing by your truth? Have you ever found yourself apologizing for something that wasn't your fault, just to keep the peace, or because you started questioning your own perception of events? It can be hard to recognize when this is happening, especially if it's coming from someone you love or trust. But it's important to start noticing the signs, because gaslighting can gradually make you feel disconnected from your own reality. What's so dangerous about gaslighting is that it doesn't just affect your memory or your perception, it impacts your self-worth and your confidence. Imagine being told over and over that what you're experiencing isn't real. It starts to make you wonder, am I the problem? Am I being too sensitive? Is there something wrong with me? And with enough repetition, you start to lose sight of the truth. You may find yourself apologizing for things that aren't your fault, questioning your emotions, and second-guessing your own instincts. The manipulation becomes more subtle as it wears you down. And in the end, you may even start feeling like you're at fault for things you never did wrong. The psychological toll of gaslighting is enormous. It can lead to anxiety, depression, and a loss of self-esteem. You may start to question not just your perception of events, but your worth as a person. After all, if someone can make you doubt your memories, your feelings, and your thoughts, how can you trust anything else in your life? It often leaves you feeling isolated, as if no one else sees things the way you do. And in the worst cases, it can lead to a feeling of powerlessness, like you're stuck in a situation where you can't trust anyone, not even yourself. So what can you do if you recognize gaslighting in your life? The first thing to remember is this: trust yourself. Gaslighting thrives on making you doubt your intuition, so your power lies in reconnecting with your own inner voice. When something feels off, when your instincts tell you that something isn't right, honor that feeling. Trust it. You don't need anyone's validation to know that what you're feeling is real. If someone denies their words or actions, don't second-guess yourself. Take a moment to breathe, to reflect, and to remind yourself, I know what I saw, I know what I heard, and my feelings are valid. It might feel hard at first, especially if you've been manipulated for a while, but re-establishing trust in yourself is the first step in breaking free from this type of control. One practical way to rebuild that trust is to start documenting your experiences. Keeping a journal of important conversations or situations can help you look back and see the truth for yourself, especially when someone is trying to rewrite the narrative. For example, if you're in a situation where someone is gaslighting you, write down the details of the conversation, including what was said and how it made you feel. This simple step can help you validate your own experiences and keep your sense of reality grounded. Remember, gaslighting isn't just about denying the past. It's about controlling the present and future. It's about creating confusion and doubt in your mind. But you have the power to protect yourself by trusting your inner wisdom and standing firm in your truth. When you stop questioning your own reality, you reclaim your peace. And when you reclaim your peace, you begin to see the world and the people around you more clearly. But gaslighting isn't the only subtle manipulation tactic people use. The next sign is something that often gets overlooked, but it's just as powerful. Guilt. Stick with me, because understanding this next tactic might help you recognize how your emotions are being used against you. Number 2, they use guilt to control your actions. The second subtle sign of manipulation is the use of guilt. This is when someone tries to make you feel responsible for their emotions, their well-being, or even their happiness, regardless of whether you did anything wrong. It's a quiet but powerful tactic because guilt can be such a heavy emotional burden. You might not even realize it's happening at first, but over time, it can make you feel like you owe someone something, like you're responsible for their feelings or actions, even when you have no reason to. Have you ever been in a situation where someone says, "After everything I've done for you, this is how you treat me?" Or maybe you've heard, "I can't believe you're doing this to me," after you simply set a boundary or expressed a need for yourself. It's subtle, but it's incredibly manipulative. The goal is to make you feel guilty for something that's not even your fault. They want to flip the script and make you feel like you've done something wrong, even when you're just standing up for yourself or making a choice that's best for you. For example, I've had moments when I needed to say no to someone, a friend, a family member, or a colleague, just because I needed space. And their response, something like, "Well, I guess I just can't count on you anymore," or, "I've always been there for you, but I see how it is." It doesn't matter that I had every right to say no. The focus shifted from my needs to their expectations. Suddenly, I was left feeling guilty for taking care of myself. Guilt is a powerful emotion. It can make us feel like we're responsible for others' happiness or well-being, even when it's not our job to carry that burden. And when it's used as a tool of manipulation, it can make us doubt our own choices. We start to question, should I have said yes? Am I being too selfish? But here's the truth. You are not responsible for someone else's feelings, actions, or emotional state. It's a hard truth to internalize, especially when you're dealing with people who know exactly how to push your emotional buttons. But once you recognize this, it becomes easier to establish healthy boundaries and stop falling into the trap of guilt manipulation. I remember a time when a close friend tried to guilt me into attending an event that I honestly didn't feel comfortable going to. I had other plans, but she kept insisting, "I've been there for you, and now you're not even showing up for me?" At first, I felt terrible. I thought, maybe I'm being a bad friend. But then I took a step back. I realized that I was not obligated to put myself in a situation that made me uncomfortable just to please her. The guilt I was feeling wasn't my guilt. It was her emotional burden that she was trying to place on me. So I had to tell myself, this is not my responsibility. And once I did that, I felt a huge weight lift off my shoulders. I didn't owe her an apology for setting a boundary. I didn't owe her my presence at the event when I wasn't emotionally up for it. But for a while, the guilt almost made me believe I did. Let me ask you this. How often do you find yourself apologizing or making excuses to avoid conflict, even when you haven't done anything wrong? Do you ever feel like you're responsible for someone else's emotional state, even when it's not your burden to carry? Think about it. When someone tries to make you feel guilty for prioritizing your own needs or feelings, that's a sign they're trying to manipulate you. The more you allow that guilt to settle in, the more you allow someone else to control your actions, your decisions, and your emotional energy. The problem with guilt manipulation is that it chips away at your ability to assert yourself. It makes you feel like you can't say no, that you have to keep making everyone else happy, or else you're a bad person. It distorts your priorities and makes you feel like the weight of someone else's emotions is yours to bear. Over time, this can lead to burnout, resentment, and a loss of self-esteem. You start putting others first, and you may feel like you've lost touch with what you actually need. You may even start to believe that your own happiness or peace of mind isn't as important as other people's comfort or approval. And that's where manipulation thrives. When you feel like your own needs are secondary to someone else's. The key to combating guilt manipulation is to create strong emotional boundaries. You must remind yourself, you are not responsible for someone else's emotions. When you feel that guilt creeping in, pause for a moment, take a deep breath, and ask yourself, is this my responsibility, or is this someone else's emotional burden they're trying to place on me? It's important to separate your feelings from the other person's. Just because someone is trying to make you feel guilty doesn't mean you actually did anything wrong. Guilt is a powerful emotion, but it's also a manipulative one when used against you. When you start to recognize it, you can stop it from controlling your actions. One helpful tool for dealing with guilt manipulation is to practice saying no with confidence. Start small. Maybe you need to say no to a request that doesn't serve your well-being. When you do, pay attention to how it feels. You might feel a little uncomfortable at first, but I promise you, every time you assert your boundaries, it gets easier. Another tool is to remind yourself of your worth. Guilt can make us feel small, but you are worthy of having your own space, your own peace, and your own needs. Don't let anyone take that away from you. Guilt manipulation thrives when we don't have clear emotional boundaries, when we feel responsible for others' happiness at the cost of our own. But when you start to honor your own needs and separate your feelings from theirs, you take back control. Remember, you are not responsible for how others feel. You are responsible for how you feel, and that's the only thing you can control. But guilt isn't the only tool people use to manipulate others. The next sign is one that's a bit harder to spot, but just as powerful. Stay with me, because understanding this next tactic could be the key to protecting your energy in situations you've never even considered before. They play the victim. The third subtle sign of manipulation is when someone constantly plays the victim. This person always portrays themselves as the one who's wronged, mistreated, or misunderstood, even when they've caused harm themselves. They shift the focus away from their own actions and put the blame on you, or anyone else who dares to challenge their narrative. It's a strategy that keeps them in the center of attention. But the emotional cost of this tactic is heavy. It makes you feel like you're always in the wrong, even when you haven't done anything wrong. Over time, this can be incredibly draining because you're constantly taking on the emotional weight of someone else's pain while they avoid accountability for their own behavior. Maybe you've experienced this situation. You bring up a legitimate concern, something that's bothering you or needs to be addressed, and the other person immediately flips the script. Instead of owning their actions, they turn the conversation into one about how they are the one suffering. Why does this always happen to me? Or perhaps you've heard something like, "You don't understand how hard my life is." In these moments, their pain takes center stage. The focus shifts from the issue you're trying to resolve to their ongoing suffering. You start to feel guilty for even mentioning your own feelings or needs. In fact, if you try to point out any wrongdoing, you might be met with a response like, "I'm the one who's always wronged, not you." It's an exhausting dynamic. What's happening here is that the manipulator is shifting the narrative. They're distracting you from their own mistakes and making you feel like the one in the wrong for bringing it up in the first place. This leaves you feeling like the villain for daring to ask for fairness, understanding, or even an apology. Now, I want you to think about the emotional toll this takes. Every time you bring up a legitimate concern, and the other person turns it into a story about how they are always the victim, it feels like you're walking on eggshells. Over time, it becomes harder to even voice your feelings or express your needs. You start questioning whether you're being too harsh or if it's really you who's at fault. It gets exhausting trying to navigate a relationship where every issue is deflected onto you, and the manipulator never has to face their own actions. This is how manipulation works, subtly at first, but over time, it erodes your confidence and your sense of self. I had a close friend who constantly played the victim. No matter what happened, they could always spin it to make themselves seem like the person who was wronged. Once we had a disagreement, and instead of taking responsibility for the part they played in it, they said, "Why is it always me? Everyone is always against me." I felt terrible. Here I was just trying to work through the situation, but now I was made to feel guilty for even bringing up my perspective. I realized that this person had turned every conflict we had into a one-sided narrative, where they were the perpetual victim and I was the one at fault. It was draining. Every time they did this, I felt like I had to take responsibility for their feelings, even though I had done nothing wrong. But here's what I learned. No matter how many times they claimed to be the victim, it didn't change the fact that they were avoiding responsibility for their own behavior. It was manipulative. It wasn't just about them being in pain. It was about avoiding accountability and making me feel like the one who had to apologize. Think about it for a moment. How often do you feel like you have to walk on eggshells around someone who always has an excuse or justification for their behavior? Have you ever found yourself apologizing to someone who never takes responsibility for their own mistakes? What happens is, over time, we start to believe that we are the cause of their pain, because that's how they frame it. But the truth is, no one else is responsible for how another person feels. Their emotional state is their own responsibility, not yours. And if they're constantly playing the victim, they're not giving you the space to express your feelings without guilt. When someone consistently plays the victim, they manipulate your emotions by making you feel like you're the cause of their suffering. This keeps you trapped in an emotional cycle where you're constantly walking on eggshells, apologizing, and feeling like you have to carry their emotional burden. The result? You lose sight of your own needs and your own boundaries. You end up doubting yourself and your right to stand up for yourself. You become hyper-aware of their feelings, and you might begin to feel like your own emotions are secondary. This is the core of emotional manipulation. When someone diverts the focus from their own wrongdoings to your perceived failures, making you responsible for their emotional state. And the more this continues, the more it damages your self-esteem and your sense of balance in the relationship. The key to handling someone who plays the victim is to recognize when you're being manipulated. You must separate their pain from your responsibility. Acknowledge their pain, but don't let their narrative become your reality. You're allowed to express your feelings and needs without being made to feel like the villain in their story. You don't need to carry their emotional burden or apologize for standing up for yourself. Acknowledge their hurt, but stand firm in your own truth. Don't let their victimhood become a tool to control your actions and emotions. One way to break free from this dynamic is by setting clear emotional boundaries. The next time you're made to feel like you're the bad guy, ask yourself, am I responsible for this situation? Am I the cause of their pain? Or is this just a manipulation tactic to keep me off balance? One tool for dealing with victim manipulation is practicing emotional detachment. This doesn't mean you stop caring about the person. It means you stop absorbing their emotional burdens. You can empathize with their pain without letting it dictate your behavior or emotional state. Another important practice is asserting your boundaries with confidence. If someone is playing the victim, politely but firmly acknowledge their emotions, but make it clear that you are not responsible for their feelings or actions. When someone constantly plays the victim, they're deflecting responsibility and making you feel guilty for things you didn't do. Recognizing this pattern is the first step in taking back your power. You have the right to express yourself without being made to feel like the villain. Set your boundaries, trust your feelings, and don't let anyone manipulate you into taking on their emotional weight. But the victim card isn't the only trick up a manipulator's sleeve. The next sign is often overlooked, but it's one of the most subtle and effective tactics they use. Stay with me as we dive into this next sign, because understanding it could change the way you navigate relationships moving forward. They use compliments to manipulate you. The fourth subtle sign of manipulation is when someone showers you with compliments, but with a hidden agenda. This is often referred to as love bombing. It can feel intoxicating at first, those sweet, seemingly sincere words that make you feel seen and appreciated. But as flattering as it seems, these compliments come with a cost. Compliments like, "You're the only one who truly understands me," or "No one else sees the world like you do," may sound wonderful, but they're often used to create a false sense of intimacy or connection. The manipulator is building a kind of emotional debt that they'll later call upon, expecting something in return. This tactic can make you feel like you owe them something, even if you never asked for it in the first place. Think about the last time someone said something that seemed too good to be true. Maybe they told you, "You're irreplaceable," or "I don't know what I'd do without you." At first, these words feel like a warm embrace, don't they? It's nice to feel valued, to be seen in a world that often overlooks us. But then, a little while later, you start to notice something. After the compliments come the requests, "Hey, I could really use your help with this," or "I know you've got a lot going on, but I really need you to do this for me." Suddenly, all those nice words feel a little hollow, like they were given with an expectation of something in return. You start to realize that the affection, the admiration, wasn't just about you. It was about getting something from you. The flattery is used as a way to lower your defenses and make you feel obligated. Think about the compliments you've received over time. Were they always tied to some kind of request or favor? How many times have you felt like someone's admiration or affection for you was conditional? Maybe it felt like their approval was only given when you were willing to meet their needs or do something for them. When compliments are used as a tool to manipulate you into giving more than you're comfortable with, it's a sign that the person isn't interested in your true well-being. They're interested in what you can provide for them. Love bombing and manipulation through compliments can be especially tricky because it plays on our natural desire to feel seen, validated, and loved. In a world where we often feel unnoticed or unappreciated, it can be easy to mistake these excessive compliments for genuine affection. But here's the truth. When compliments start to feel too heavy, too tied to an agenda, that's when we need to pause and reassess the situation. No one should make you feel like you owe them something just because they said something nice about you. True love and admiration should come freely, without strings attached. I remember a time when a friend of mine started showering me with compliments. At first it felt great. I was so used to giving in relationships and not always getting much in return. So when they told me, "You're incredible, you're such a gift to everyone you meet," I felt like I had found someone who really saw me. But then, little by little, the requests started. "Hey, can you do this for me? Would you mind helping me with that?" The compliments were still coming, but now they were starting to feel like part of an unspoken agreement. It didn't take long before I realized this wasn't genuine admiration. It was manipulation. The compliments were used to lure me into giving more of my time, my energy, and my resources than I was comfortable with. It became clear that their affection wasn't really about me. It was about getting what they wanted. The impact of love bombing is often subtle but powerful. It tricks you into thinking that someone truly values you for who you are. But the truth is, they value what you can do for them. They want to create an emotional debt that they can call upon whenever they need something. Over time, this can make you feel manipulated, like you're just a means to an end rather than an equal partner or friend. It can also leave you feeling confused because you're not sure whether the affection is real or if it's just a strategy to get something from you. Manipulators use this tactic because it works. They create a sense of closeness that makes it hard for you to say no. How could you possibly turn down someone who tells you that you're irreplaceable? But the truth is, genuine compliments never come with a price tag. If someone's admiration for you always comes with a hidden agenda, it's time to take a step back and evaluate their true intentions. The key to recognizing and combating this kind of manipulation is simple. Genuine compliments should feel light, sincere, and free of any strings attached. If someone's compliments start to feel too heavy, or if you feel like you owe them something after receiving a compliment, take a step back. Ask yourself, why are they saying this? What do they want from me? Is this about me or about getting something from me? Compliments should lift you up, not make you feel obligated. They should never create a sense of emotional debt. If someone's praise always seems to come with an unspoken, "I did this for you, now you owe me," it's time to evaluate whether the affection is real or just a tool for manipulation. A good practice when receiving compliments is to simply sit with them and notice how they make you feel. Do they make you feel good about yourself, or do they make you feel like you have to prove something in return? If you're getting compliments that make you feel like you owe someone, it's important to set a boundary and evaluate whether this person is really there for you or just for what you can give them. It's easy to get caught up in the flattery of love bombing, but remember, genuine affection doesn't come with conditions. When compliments feel like currency, it's time to step back and question their true motive. And this final sign? It's the one that often goes unnoticed, but it can be the most damaging of all. Stay with me, because once you recognize this sign, you'll be able to protect yourself from the most toxic manipulation of all. E5. They disregard your boundaries. The fifth and final sign is when someone consistently disregards your boundaries. They push you past your comfort zone, whether it's emotionally, physically, or mentally. This is a sneaky form of manipulation because it often starts small and incremental. Maybe it begins with something harmless, a request for a favor you're not entirely comfortable with, or a just this once situation. But over time, these requests grow. They keep chipping away at your boundaries, and soon those boundaries are no longer something you can hold on to. They slowly convince you that your comfort and limits don't matter, that their needs or desires take precedence. Have you ever found yourself saying yes to something you really didn't want to do, just to avoid conflict? Or perhaps someone made you feel guilty for saying no, using phrases like, "You're being unreasonable," or, "If you really cared about me, you'd do this." These tactics are designed to manipulate you into prioritizing someone else's needs over your own. They make you question your own judgment, and they make you feel like a bad person for having any kind of boundary. The truth is, these aren't just harmless requests. They're subtle ways of breaking down your sense of self-worth and teaching you that your needs don't matter. One time I found myself agreeing to help a friend move, even though I had a very full schedule. I was exhausted and I knew I couldn't give them the help they needed. But when I said, "I'm really sorry, I just can't today," their response was, "Come on, you're the only one who can help me. If you loved me, you'd do this." In that moment, I felt like the worst person in the world for saying no. I thought I was being selfish, and even though my body and mind were begging for rest, I ended up pushing through and helping them. It was a classic example of how someone can make you feel guilty for protecting your own well-being. Think about your own life for a moment. How often do you let others cross your boundaries because you fear conflict, or you're afraid of letting them down? Do you sometimes convince yourself that your needs aren't as important as theirs? Or that setting boundaries will make you seem cold or unloving? The reality is, boundaries aren't just nice things to have. They are essential. They are a way to honor yourself, your needs, and your well-being. And when you start letting others push past those limits, it leads to burnout, resentment, and a sense of losing yourself. Have you ever said yes when everything inside you was screaming no? It's important to realize that no matter how much someone else might want or need something, your well-being should always be a priority. When someone consistently disregards your boundaries, it can leave you feeling drained, powerless, and resentful. It's not just about the small things. Over time, it wears away at your sense of self-respect and your belief that your needs are valid. When you're constantly expected to accommodate others without consideration for your own feelings or limits, it can lead to feelings of guilt, shame, and frustration. The more you ignore your boundaries, the more you begin to question your own worth and your right to say no. This manipulation tactic is dangerous because it doesn't just harm you in the moment. It chips away at your confidence and your self-esteem. You start to believe that your comfort doesn't matter and that you're only valuable if you're giving to others. The truth is, this is a toxic cycle that keeps you giving at the expense of your mental, emotional, and physical health. The solution to boundary manipulation is simple but powerful. Set and enforce your boundaries. Boundaries are not a sign of weakness or selfishness. They are a reflection of your self-worth and respect for yourself. And here's the key. If someone truly cares about you, they will respect your boundaries even if it's inconvenient for them. If they don't respect them, it's a clear sign that their needs are taking priority over yours. So the next time someone asks you to do something that doesn't feel right for you, or tries to push you beyond what you're comfortable with, take a moment to pause and assess. Ask yourself, is this my responsibility? Is this something I want to do? Am I compromising my own well-being for someone else's comfort? And then trust yourself. Trust your gut. Say no when you need to and stand firm in that decision. Your needs matter. Your comfort matters. And if someone truly cares about you, they'll respect that. A good exercise is to practice saying no in small, low-stakes situations. This could be anything from declining a request to go somewhere when you're tired, to saying no to a favor you don't have time for. The more you practice setting boundaries, the easier it becomes to stand up for yourself when it counts. And remember, you don't need to explain or justify your no. You're allowed to protect your energy and your time, and you don't owe anyone an explanation. Your boundaries are valid simply because they are yours. Setting boundaries is an act of self-respect. It is a way of saying, I matter and my well-being is important. It's not selfish, it's necessary. The right people will respect your boundaries because they will see them as a sign of your strength and self-love. The wrong people will push against them, but that's just a reflection of their lack of respect for you. Don't let anyone make you feel guilty for protecting yourself. Your comfort, your needs, and your well-being should always come first. So to recap the 5 subtle signs of manipulation: gaslighting, guilt, playing the victim, love bombing with compliments, and disregarding boundaries. These signs are often quiet, sneaky, and difficult to spot. But once you begin to recognize them, you can start to protect yourself and reclaim your personal power. Remember, manipulation thrives when we don't set clear boundaries or trust ourselves. When we stay grounded in our truth and stand firm in our needs, we protect ourselves from these subtle but damaging tactics. You deserve relationships where you feel respected, valued, and safe to be yourself. Take a moment today to check in with your own boundaries. Are there places where you've been compromising yourself for the sake of others? What small changes can you make to start protecting your energy and your peace? Trust yourself. You have everything you need to recognize when you're being manipulated and to stand strong in your own truth. If this resonated with you, make sure to subscribe, and I'll see you in the next video. Take care of yourself.